Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute bedrock of process mining. I'm talking about data preparation and mapping. You can think of this whole process exactly like building the plumbing for a brand new house. Before you can just turn on the faucet and get this clear, flowing stream of organizational insights, well, you have to make sure your pipes are laid out correctly, properly connected, and absolutely leak-free. If you rush the plumbing, yeah, you're going to end up with a mess. But if you follow a precise blueprint, you're laying a rock-solid foundation for literally all your future analysis.
Okay, let's dive into this checklist. We're going to cover choosing your ingestion path, transforming your event data, mapping mandatory log attributes, and finally, maintaining and refreshing your data. Starting with Section 1, choosing your ingestion path. So you've essentially got two primary options here, and it really comes down to when you want to do the heavy lifting. First up is data flow. If you go with data flow, you're going to be using Power Query to transform and consolidate your data from multiple sources right as part of the loading process. It's super dynamic. Second, we have Azure Data Lake. Now, Azure Data Lake takes a totally different approach. It requires you to pre-transform your data and consolidate everything before you even attempt to load it into the process mining environment. So take a close look at your current project setup, because knowing which of these two camps you fall into is going to dictate your very next steps. Moving on to Section 2, transforming your event data.
Now, what's really interesting about this phase is how strict the rules are around attribute types, specifically single-use types. Unlike multi-use types, which you can just assign to multiple fields without an issue, a single-use type can literally only be used one single time in your entire mapping configuration. If you try to bend this rule and use a single-use type more than once, the system is going to throw a hard error. You actually won't even be able to save your progress until you fix it.
And that brings us to a major gotcha alert that trips up a ton of teams. So the crucial point is this. What happens if your absolutely essential data, like a case ID, for example, spans across two different systems? Or what if it requires a combination of two fields? Well, because case ID is a single-use value, you just can't map multiple fields to it during the mapping phase. No way. The solution? You actually have to merge those values into one single field during this exact data transformation process way before you even attempt to map them. And hey, if you're using Dataflow, you'll handle that merging right inside Power Query.
Right, let's look at Section 3, Mapping Mandatory Log Attributes. All right, here is your non-negotiable checklist. To successfully map an event log, you absolutely must provide at least 3 mandatory attributes. First, the case ID. Second, the activity name. And third, the event start time. Honestly, without these 3, the system simply cannot visualize a workflow. They are the absolute bare minimum required for ingestion. But notice that fourth bullet point. While you can map plenty of other event-level or case-level attributes, the resource field is a highly recommended pro tip. If you or your team ever want to unlock social mapped options during your analysis, to see exactly how different individuals or departments are interacting within the process, you have to map the resource field right here. If you skip it now, those powerful social visualization tools just won't be available to you later on.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. Maintaining and refreshing data. Your data is mapped, but is it current? Honestly, this is the question every single analyst needs to ask themselves, because your beautifully mapped, flawless foundational plumbing is completely useless if the water running through it is completely stagnant. Business processes change by the minute, right? So you absolutely need a strategy to make sure your process mining insights stay reliable and up to date. To keep things flowing, you can actually configure a data refresh schedule right from the details screen in your data source panel. And you've basically got 3 main tools at your disposal. First, by default, the system runs a scheduled full refresh. That just pulls all the event log data again, nice and simple. Second, if you select an incremental refresh, the data flow is only going to load new data from a specific time window. This is highly efficient, but it does open up a few extra configuration options you'll need to dial in. And finally, if you need the absolute latest data right this exact second, you can instantly trigger a manual refresh straight from the process report screen on the web.
Okay, but what if you realize your plumbing has a slight leak? Like, what if your team starts analyzing the process and goes, wait, we need to correct a mapping? Or maybe you suddenly want to include some extra data fields that you completely ignored earlier. Seriously? Don't panic. You aren't locked in forever. You can easily refine this stuff. You just follow 3 simple steps. Open your process report, hit Details on the command bar, and then select Setup. Boom. From there, you can re-edit your mappings, save the whole shebang, and jump right back into analyzing the process with your upgraded data.
And that completely wraps up our ultimate checklist. You've chosen your path, you've transformed your logs, mapped those mandatory attributes, and set up your refresh pipelines. Your data foundation is absolutely solid. So I want to leave you with this final thought. With your foundational plumbing flawlessly mapped and continuously refreshed, what invisible organizational bottlenecks will your data finally reveal? Thanks for tuning into this explainer. Now go get to work on that data.